Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer. I guess I'd call myself a refugee from the religious right and an evangelical fundamentalist childhood, or as sometimes the way I put it is I survived both polio and evangelical Christianity. But I want to fast forward to the present tense with a view to how I grew up as the son and nepotistic sidekick of an evangelical leader, Father Francis Schaeffer, who back in the 70s and 80s, if you had asked a white evangelical American Christian who their intellectual was, many would have said C.S. Lewis, the author, and others would have said Francis Schaeffer. He went on to be identified with the religious right because of the abortion issue, and is called by some people the father of the evangelical pro-life movement. Fast forward to the present, and I can tell you one thing for sure, however, that the evangelicals in those days, Pat Robertson, Francis Schaeffer, Jerry Falwell Sr., Dr. Dobson of Focus on the Family, that generation of evangelical right-wing Christians would have been shocked and horrified to learn that today's evangelical leadership and millions of voters seem to be passively going along with Donald Trump's refusal to say that he will accept the election result of the American people. Donald Trump has been lying consistently now for a long time, laying the groundwork to challenge the election result in case he loses with this spurious claim of voter fraud, something that the FBI has said is very unlikely in any sense of a large-scale voter fraud, mail fraud, mail voting, voting by ballot fraud influenced by foreign powers, another highly unlikely scenario. The truth is, he knows he may well lose, and it is his pride, his malignant narcissism that is kicking in to try to protect his ego. Not any policy, not pro-life agendas, not appointing pro-life judges, none of these things. What matters to Donald Trump is that his ego is wounded in the same way it was wounded by the fact that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by millions of votes, though she lost in the Electoral College. And so he denied the fact she had won the popular vote, denied the polls and all the rest of it. And I want to tell you something as someone who picked out Donald Trump a long time before anybody else did. Before the 2016 election, I did a video called let me introduce the Donald or whatever it was. It had 4 or 5 million views. A lot of people looked at that and later realized that I had been telling the truth, saying that this was going to happen and he was a serious candidate and so forth and so on. Today, I want to make a point. As someone who comes from the religious right and knows the no-holds-barred dedication to a view of theocracy, and that is somehow God has chosen America and we need to become a heavenly kingdom on earth, we need to stop abortions, roll back gay rights, put women back in the kitchen as subservient to their husbands, and all the rest of this. These folks have now convinced themselves that there's only 2 outcomes of the election that are going to be possible. 1, Donald Trump wins and God's work has been done on earth again. 2, he loses, but only because of fraud and mail-in ballots and the nefarious deep state that backs Joe Biden kicking in some weird way to twist the vote. Donald Trump is the first sitting president in American history who has never given a straightforward answer to the question, will you abide by the will of the people? Just the other day, he was given a chance to clarify by a journalist who asked him twice, and he kept saying, I have to see how it turns out. Again, there's only 2 results in Donald Trump's head that he will accept. 1, he wins. 2, he loses, but only because he was cheated, because he can still be the great candidate who never loses. Just like he denies the fact that he was bankrupt 6 times, that he lost all his businesses again and again, that his father had to bail him out. He has told consistent, ego-driven, malignant, narcissistic lies now for an entire lifetime, robbing people of a university education by starting Trump U, a fraudulent outfit, bolstering the income of his hotels by paying exorbitant prices for Secret Service agents and other government officials that he forces to be housed there again and again at top prices, giving no discount to the American people. This man has been fraudulent, and now his ego dictates that there's only 2 results he will accept. I win, or I only lost because I was cheated. And I will take revenge on the American people in the same way that he revenges himself on whistleblowers or judges or prosecutors or anyone who doesn't go along with his agenda. He is a man of revenge. He is a petty little mobster man of revenge. He has a mobster's criminal mind, and that is break their legs if they refuse to pay up, in this case against whistleblowers and the rest who he kicks out of the army or the military, whatever it may be. Goes after John McCain because McCain didn't like him. He revenges himself and says, I don't like people who were captured. This is a small man, a petty man, but he has the power of the presidency now, and I want to make a prediction. And that is, 1, he will lose. 2, he will refuse to accept the loss. And to feed his own ego, he would rather see blood in the streets with armed militias and other people coming forward that will believe his propaganda, that will believe the mythology being peddled by these insane conspiracy theories about the deep state and the rest of it, rather than admit the fact they elected the wrong guy. The first time around, he's responsible for 200,000+ deaths right now, probably 300,000 by the election. That we are living in a declining economy where health care is being rolled back, Obamacare being pushed back for pre-existing conditions, that he has threatened the Social Security system for older people, people in my age bracket. So I predict on election night there will be one of 2 alternatives. I won, or I refuse to accept the result will be what Donald Trump does. What will not happen is a congratulatory call from Donald Trump to Vice President Joe Biden saying, you won the election. Let bygones be bygones. Now let me help you bring our country back together. That won't happen. We are going to have a contested result. We are having the contested result with a malignant narcissist who is mentally unbalanced and will refuse for the good of the country to accept the result. He's going to question it. An entire political party that is now a personality cult refusing to accept the result of the election. And I want to go back to what I said at the beginning of this little sermon of mine, and that is that if you had told my dad, Francis Schaeffer, or Billy Graham, or Jerry Falwell Jr., or Dr. Dobson, or Pat Robertson, or anybody at all within the evangelical community that built the religious right, that they would be backing a movement that would eventually become so divorced from the American democratic experiment that we would get to a day when a Republican candidate elected only because white evangelicals supported him, 83% of them voted for him in 2016, would refuse to accept the legitimate handover of power, the glory of American history, a free election, that he would be telling all these lies to sow doubt in millions of minds that are addled by Fox News and the alternative vision of America, and that he is willing to gamble with blood in the streets as the price for not accepting the election result. This is not, will this happen? One last thing. I criticize the mainstream media for not clearly stating that this is what's going to happen. Not may happen, could happen, but is going to happen. Again, he will either win or he will refuse to accept the election. There will be no congratulatory call. He is willing to jeopardize the entire American democratic system of governance, not for a higher cause of appointing pro-life judges, not for a higher cause of giving tax breaks to his friends, for the sole cause of a malignant narcissist who cannot face the fact that the truth of American history is about to refute his self-aggrandizing lie. That is this: I am always a winner. And so anything that makes me a loser must be a fraud. Does he really believe it himself? I don't know the level of his delusion. But is that what he's putting forth? Yes. And he will sacrifice peace and democracy and the change of power in this country to his ego. That is what confronts us. The media must tell the truth, and if there are any Republicans left out there who are patriots first and Republicans second, now is the time to push back and stand up and say, we will refuse this result right along with Democrats. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.